possible to get rid of this something by washing hands and not somewhere else. So is everybody done? My conclusion from the noise level was correct? Okay, I mean, we set a break. Okay, if you use the break to create noise, fine. Then please start reading now. more or less done. What would you say is the real world?
That it's possible to date rocks.
This is not what I had in mind. So this is completely original. No problem. Let's see where, wait. This gentleman has a brilliant idea. Let's see if he gets through the 6-step program. Because very often this happens. That you think, okay, here or there. But then if you try to complete the 6-step program, then it turns out that somewhere step 3 or step 4 do not fit into your program. Some other cases, it is possible to do something completely different than what most people do. And still, the point is, can you get your 6-step program coherent? So in this case, what is your model or theory?
My model is that there's continental drift.
How does this relate to your real world? You're making, the idea is, you're making a theory of the rest of the real world.
Okay, then I would rephrase to say it's possible to determine the presence of continental drift by dating rocks.
Blah, 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 blah. So slowly, you're moving into my direction. Let's hear what the others have to say. You want
Can
first?
we rephrase the real world like there is a boundary in the African part of the continent that leads to the southwest,
And what's your model, your theory?
and the model then would be that they are a part, Africa and South America were a part of the.
That was your real world.
Continental drifts.
Stop. That's enough. That's enough. What was the rest?
The rest doesn't matter.
No. You were in the middle of a sentence and I stopped you because that's what I'm going to write down. But what else did you want to say?
Just the drift is the cause of the boundary. Yeah.
So for me, I would be happy. Perhaps a full sentence that continents are drifting, are walking over the globe, are dancing, whatever. What's in this case the theory or the model? Theory.
Africa and South America were part of one landmass that broke up.
What's the prediction? Isn't that the prediction? No, I wouldn't say so. That is the bigger theory. If that is the prediction, What is your model or your theory in that case?
I actually also had a real world.
Yeah.
It's possible.
You see, and then you run into problem if you try to get this into a coherent framework, complete framework. All of a sudden I have 4 predictions.
Yeah, I have model is continental drift and prediction is
What is your real world model?
Yeah,
Real world then.
continents are separated. That's what we see.
So then you have the same model as the real world.
Not really, because continental drift is a hypothesis. We don't know it when we look at the real world. What we see
Oh, that's a
is
central question. The question is there evidence that the continents were drifting?
no, therefore it's model, right? Someone puts it in the table that they are drifting.
But I do not accept this. I do not think this is a very good prediction. I think this is a terribly lousy prediction. What is the prediction?
The geological boundary to the line of the separate continents.
Not good enough. I know what you mean, but this is a much stronger piece. Much stronger piece.
Hier zou Louis, er is een geological boundary between 600 million years old provinces and 2000 million years old provinces.
So the very strong thing here is that it's not the case that I say, let's walk around in Africa and let's walk around in Brazil and perhaps we find some rocks. I mean, until you fall flat on your nose, then there is a rock. Let's see. How old are you? Okay. That's not the case. Basically, these people draw the lines and they indicated a very, very specific spot. And that was São Luís. And what? So they went there on the boat, swimming, whatever. They went there, and what did they look for? Not just a difference between rocks. No, rocks on this side was west, were 200 million years old, and rocks on the left of that straight line were 600 million years old. So that was the second part of it. That was the second part of the prediction.
Yeah, maybe I misinterpreted it then, but I felt like that the model then was that there should be different geographical boundaries, and that the data was like only this observation.
Yeah,
So
I think this case here is much stronger than what you suggest.
Yeah, I felt like it is in general that the geographical boundaries should align, and that you have like many over the earth, like these.
Yeah.
And that they just found one, and then that their prediction was these
They found
exist.
one.
Yeah,
rock.
okay, but,
No, it's much, much stronger. This is a very, very strong case. You see the difference between our 6-step programs?
yeah, I see.
You would find this a very interesting.
But I see the difference, but now I felt like this is like data already.
Sorry, this is?
This is like data already. That they found this line.
No, they went there. Why didn't they go to Sao Paulo? It's only a difference of a few letters.
Yeah, but I thought like maybe it's like lousy.
Moreover,
They should
Sao
find
Paulo
more
you can go by airplane. Sao Luís you have to take the boat, a rubber boat or whatever.
Yeah, but I thought that in that sense it's like lousy that they also didn't go there maybe.
No, they went there
Yeah,
for a very, very specific reason.
that's like only one data point. You know?
That doesn't matter. It's a prediction, and with the prediction, the sharper the prediction, the stronger is your evidence. I mean, if I had predicted somewhere in Brazil or somewhere in South America, we would have found the same dividing line.
Yeah,
That
but
would have
this
been
is-
much, much weaker than indicating.
Yeah, but I think that's maybe like this data thing, because then you find like this,
Sorry, say it again.
like this data, that you first get the data and then make your prediction.
How do you get the data?
No, like for example, if you,
These guys didn't walk.
no, but now it seems like they just were there and they say, we found this line.
No.
And,
They
oh,
were
we
not
found-
just there. They went there
Yeah,
on purpose.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, now it seems like they just went there. Like,
They did go there,
yeah.
but I insist that they went there on purpose.
They predicted that it would be there,
Yeah.
and then they went there, and then it was there.
Yeah.
And then they
it was
started
there,
measuring.
It's already the data, but this is what they predicted would be there, and it was there. Found.
Yeah.
And that's the data. But this
Yeah,
is
but
the
it's a
prediction.
it's a bit hard to predict it was exactly there without some prior data. They had some, right?
No. There's no evidence here in the story.
I think we're not
And I think there was no data. They just
Yeah,
made,
maybe that's no problem.
this is Africa, and this is Brazil, and they thought, hey, that was once there. And they had data for here.
Yeah, I know.
These were the data that were available.
Yeah.
And because they believed in this,
Yeah, but that's what I mean already. They already like believe in that, so then.
that's your model.
But then there must
And on the basis of the model, they say, well, this should be exactly here. And so they went on their boat to here. This
Yeah.
is Sao Luis.
Mhm.
And they started checking.
Mhm.
And they didn't start checking.
No. They already had some.
Sorry?
They already had some ideas about it.
Yeah. Well, and the idea came from their model. So the prediction is where to go on vacation. Well, let's take the model, and the model says you should go there, and not somewhere else.
But then their model must be very elaborate in that, because otherwise they wouldn't be able to make that prediction that they would expect exactly this point on the Brazilian coast to be connected to, because then they need the exact path that basically the continent took and extrapolate all the way back to where it was initially.
No,
So,
why?
because otherwise it might be, this line in Brazil might be anywhere on the continent. They can only predict that it's exactly there if they knew or if they had a hypothesis where it was while the continents were still merged.
Yeah.
So they have a very specific path in mind, and they can basically connect every point on the Brazilian coast today to where it was. No.
Do you have a globe at home? Cut it apart and start rebuilding it.
Yes, but if you formalize that,
Yeah.
then you have a very specific transition path.
No, I don't know. I don't know how or
Or
when or what caused this continent, which we now call South America, to go there. I guess he believes it were his extraterrestrials in what did he have? Green trousers that moved it down there. The only thing that we know is just by looking at the map is that this divide, that's under prediction. If they were really united, then this dividing line should be found here.
okay, but I would argue that if they found this dividing line someplace else in Brazil, then that wouldn't preclude the possibility that Africa and South America were once united. They would just.
Ho, 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 ho!
It would still be
Ho, ho,
evidence.
ho,
It would be
ho.
weaker evidence than
Ho
before.
means stop. What you're doing now, which is fair, but that would be a next step of research on the basis of what you find. You say, okay, I accept this result, but what if not? So, and that might possibly require a separate six-step program. We do one step at a time. You convinced?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. And what are the data?
including source codes.
And this is also typical for pieces written by a journalist. Very often, the language that they use mix up these two things. So the question is, what was this? Was this data, or was this prediction? Or so you have to tear them apart. So they did go there. They looked at the rocks, and one. So that is what made this research possible. Now we can tell, without a full survey, we can tell how old the rocks are. And I would say that data and prediction agree, and I personally couldn't come up with an alternative model. If you do not agree, let me know. Unless something went wrong with the copy machine, or unless somebody has left in the break, there must be someone who has no copy. Okay, then there must be something wrong with the copy machine. Oh no, this is exercise 4, sorry. This is a typical example of type of research that we encounter in economics and business also frequently, particularly if you take a somewhat longer period of time into consideration. I mean, for example, advancements like the use of a computer has helped tremendously to make better predictions, so that whatever we thought was true turns out not to be true. Or in the field of marketing, financial economics, or even nowadays in macroeconomics and macroeconometrics, lots of data are available with which you can test theories from the past, and then they turn out to be true or not true. So what is the real world in this case? Sorry?
Millions of stars exist in galaxies.
Yeah, okay. What is your model or theory? Yeah. What would you list on the prediction?
Motions of various stars can be calculated.
What is your data?
Moving telescope.
What are your data?
The stars are moving much faster.
Images of stars produced by large telescope.
So actually, the exact prediction and the exact motion of the star, the data, are not listed here. But what is listed is they don't match. So very implicitly, they tell you what are the data. You don't have it because this is written by a journalist, and what were the predictions. But apparently what is mentioned here is the surprise, or at least the conclusion, the observation, that they moved faster or slower or at a different place or whatever. And this is typical. Old theories are discarded because of new ways of measurement. This should not be part of your 6-step program. Next is a little bit more complex, not complicated. told you that this exercise was a little bit more complicated than the first three exercises. What is the complication here?
They were kind of short of data.
No, no. The complication is with the six-step program.
I think you could actually make it to 6 programs actually. So also about that it is.
What did I tell you 3 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago, I told you that if I ask a question, preferably I want to have the wrong answer first. Not immediately the right
Sorry.
answer.
Okay.
You fuck up the whole.
Sorry.
Okay, so basically here are two stories. And one story is shit, it didn't work. And the next story is, oh, but we can do better. And we did better. And in that case, do not try to implement this into one six-step program. If there are two stories, then just give me two six-step programs. So, what's the real world? What will you say?
Position system.
The model?
You don't want to do that.
Prediction?
That your Uranus would be at the network actually too, because in the first one was because of the models, but I would say that that Uranus would be on a specific place.
The data in that case,
Is that Uranus was not affected.
so the data are no. Let's say observed. And so the conclusion is Newton goes out of the window. Well, when somebody opened the window to throw Newton out, other people started protesting because actually the story is slightly more complicated. Actually, it's not the basic. But there are very often a lot of assumptions involved. So, and when you have the case and it turns out that the result is not true, then the implication is that this is how scientists work. And the more you believe in the model, that's what they write, the model worked in so many cases that we didn't want to give up the model immediately. So in that case, there's only one possibility, that there is something wrong with the assumptions. So, and that is the process of science that, well, I don't know. And that is what was done in the model B, let's say the next step. That will be, well, the rest of the world is the same. Let's run the calculations if we throw in another planet. What were the predictions?
Then it would show up at a particular time and place.
Yeah, but both. So the prediction. Of course, first they couldn't find it, and then the point is you have to look better, buy a new pair of glasses or whatever, and data were well, sometimes you have even 3 or 4 6-step programs, and in some cases you can combine them, write them as one, when you have prediction 1, prediction 2, prediction 3, whatever. Sometimes it works better if you list them separately. The last one. Or actually I have 2 more. Depends on what you want. This is a nasty one. do we think of this piece? Do we believe the authors in the claim that it was global warming that did the job on the basis of what is written here? Why not?
I didn't see any data.
Well, there's lots of data in the paper.
Yeah, that's really on warming.
That's one problem. Come back to that problem. Anyone who has a good 6-step program, or actually 4,
I would argue that step 6, the answer to that might be yes, which is why it's not necessarily a good model.
okay, but it means that at least you got to step 6.
Hope so.
Well, you did. You did. Okay. Interesting. Let's try.
Okay, so
I'm not. There's no guarantee whatsoever that what I'm going to write now on the blackboard might possibly be correct.
let's try.
Let's hear.
So the real world would be the impact of the asteroid on temperatures. Pretty much.
And then, because that's mentioned here, we already agree on the effect, on the ultimate effect, right?
Extinction.
Yeah. So the question is, have you ever seen a dinosaur? No. So they're no longer there. What's your model or your theory?
So the model is that the meteorite releases CO2, which leads to global warming, and we also have to make a couple of assumptions about the asteroid hitting carbonate beds, that the beds have to have a certain thickness, etc.
Okay. These are the assumptions combined into, well, global warming, etc., etc. And then extinction.
The extinction would actually be part of my prediction.
Fine. But the greenhouse effect not.
Yeah, no, that would be part of the model.
Okay. What's our prediction?
The extinction of the species.
And the end point is, of course, the data. Well, I've checked, are there any dinosaurs? No, there are no dinosaurs, so data and...
Yes.
Okay, okay. That's possible, yeah. So then at least you have a 6-step program that is...
Yeah, and then the 6th step would be, okay, but we would observe the prediction even if our model was wrong, namely if there was cooling instead of warming.
Yeah,
Therefore, it's not...
yeah. This is, probably you know this joke about this farmer in East Groningen, and he says, well, I have something that I spread over my agricultural land, and it is to keep the elephants away. Keep the elephants away? What the fuck? Well, do you see an elephant here? It works like hell. So that's your prediction and your data. Yeah. Okay. That's fine. So, and in that case, step 5 would be yes, step 6. And the alternative is a real one. I mean, this is not something about extraterrestrials or dinosaurs or things to keep elephants away. This is a serious alternative model that actually, when the rock hit the right spot, a lot of CO2 was released, but a lot of rubbish went up, a lot of debris went up, and that led to the sun went out, couldn't see the sun anymore, and that led to and this is what's called the extinction of the dinosaurs and other lovely animals. In the Ice Age, etc., etc. But this is prediction and data. They're not very strong. But yes, you got a full 6-step program coherent. But what are the actual facts that are given here? Could we try to come up with more evidence? They do achieve something. Not what is suggested by the journalist, but they do come up with something. What about the part fun with a gun? I mean, these gangsters at Caltech. I mean, there is a lot of data there. What's the role there? Yeah.
They try to back up or at least make reasonable the model that they give.
Yeah.
So at least give some that could be backed into it with that it could really be a possibility.
So what they do is basically here at this stage, that's where the gun comes into play. But my problem. So you could say this is your model, and then a possible 6-step program would then be CO2 release, and as data you could mention the gun experiment, plus what was it? Well, plus they check these this is modern chalk. But this 6-step program has serious problems. So if this had been your 6-step program, and this is more or less suggested by the journalist, you have serious problems. The problems with this 6-step program is that, and this is a mistake that I see frequently occur, so if you have a prediction about years, do not come up with data on the color of potatoes. I mean, then your data should also be in years. So here, the prediction could be amounts of CO2 release. But here there is no data for CO2 release. Another problem with this 6-step program is this part. Getting the right spot. Yeah, what they do tell you is that there are several spots all over the world that could have been right spots. Yeah, that's true. But who says that one of these spots was actually hit? I don't know. Well, and then the third problem is that it still allows so I've tried this much harder, well, at least much longer than you did, and I cannot come up with a 6-step program that covers it all. What is possible, and that is actually what is shown here in this paper, and that's a much more modest 6-step program. I cannot rule out, and there are good reasons why this is possible. Or even, if you like, let me be precise. The amount of, if a rock of this size, and then the size is indicated, if that rock hits the earth at the appropriate place, then so much CO2 is released that that could lead possibly to global warming. So basically it's about the release of CO2. And the prediction is, well, have fun with the gun, start shooting into calcite, and of course the gun is like this size and rock was supposed to be like that, so plus then you can estimate how much CO2 must be released by the impact of a huge rock on the Earth. Well, they did the gun experiment and calcite, they did the extrapolation, and what they found is the CO2 release. This is what he established. And the question to data and cannot come up with an alternative model. But recall that the real world has been made much smaller. I cannot come up with where this amount of CO2 release would possibly come from. The answer is then no. Whether this has actually happened and whether this has caused the extinction of our little lovely dinos, I don't know. And the authors cannot establish that. So sometimes people, and in particular, publishing is a rat race nowadays. So many people try to make their stories bigger. Whatever research you do, everybody is trying to save the world. And that's how they write their papers. And it's your task to evaluate whether with the papers that you read, the world is saved, or whether an interesting piece of research has been done, but actually the authors should have been much more modest. And of course, journalists want to make things even more bigger, because people do not want to read in the newspaper that nothing has happened. I mean, you only want to read in the newspaper when something has happened. So even if little has happened, journalists sometimes tend to write it as if something big has happened. That's good for their readership, and therefore their own pocket. I have one more exercise. It's a lengthy exercise in terms of reading, and it's not sensational. So you tell me whether you've seen enough of this or not.
I've seen enough, but yeah.
Okay, bye.
Can just
If nobody objects, then we stop here. 2 remarks. One with respect to the assignment. It will be posted, hopefully this time it works correctly. If not, send me immediately a message. It should be there at 4 o'clock. The assignment consists of some exercises on logic, still a few. And then there are 3 short papers published in Science. So these are 1-pagers. These are written by journalists on the basis of a real full-blown scientific article. And so the journalists summarize it. And then there is one longer 4-page, 4 or 5-page paper from Science. And you are required to evaluate all 4 of them using the 6-step program. Be careful, in particular with the longer article. Very often these longer articles contain more information, more 6-step programs than the shorter ones. So in that case, I want you to evaluate what is in the paper and not just select one that you like. No, but I would like to have a more or less full picture of what is in the paper. To help you, there are also on the website, there are 4 examples, 2 1-pagers and 2 examples of, let's say, papers with 4 or 5 pages. And I have added also my own evaluation. But of course, my own evaluation is very, very brief. So I could imagine that your evaluation, that you write out the sentences where I just give 1 or 2 words. Okay? So then you can see what is more or less expected from you. The second remark is with respect to tomorrow. Tomorrow we will have some presentations, but we will also have some discussions. For example, in the morning group, there is no presentation on positive economics. So you have to prepare yourself by reading that material carefully and preparing some items for discussion. And in the afternoon group, we have half a presentation, What are you going to do?
Cover
Cover all or
no, only two basically. And that's fine.
only two?
Yeah, only two of the 4 papers, and then the rest in the discussion. No.
Sorry, there are only 2 papers.
In the first session.
You're in the second session, or not?
Yeah, so the verification and falsification.
Well, that's 4, okay.
Papers. Yeah.
Well, let me check.
During the first session.
Right. Okay, right. So people in group B also read all the material, because he's going to cover only half of it, so that leaves the rest for discussion, and he's not going to tell you which the papers, so read everything. Okay, see you tomorrow.
We'll probably pull an all-nighter. We'll probably pull an all-nighter. Yeah.
哪里有这个东西啊？
At least you will not prepare a second session, right?
Nou, check die voor mij.
It's raining, so I have to stop. Well, I'm here by bike, so.
You go top or?
Ja, dat mag.
You also late.
Come on, before you stop at once. Yeah, let's stay here.
Maybe we can wait downstairs, yeah?
Drink some coffee.
Would you like to take some coffee? Okay, see you. No, we still articles. Are you not sure?
Now I hope that you
Is that yours too?
You have to do your own temperature.
You can come tomorrow at 9 o'clock and then should repeat it.
So it's complicated. So it's probably it's truly the last one. I get quite confused.
An awful lot
I don't
of
know where is the
space
last mistake.
without the impact
I didn't get that as well.
the size of a rock.
I didn't get it. Yeah.
No, I cannot come up with
I'm wondering that
so much.
another. I mean that also makes
So this one is much smaller, or the world is much smaller in this
but not
than it was in the other.
yeah, it's not in the also you know
Yeah, that's right. Right, right.
it was mentioned in the
Right,
paper.
right.
You have
Extinction through global warming. It's mentioned like
Yeah, right.
if there
Right.
is global warming, blah blah, then they
You had a
might
question?
have extinction. Yeah. Check it afterwards.